what markers would you be looking at on a blood test that, well, this is critical, triglycerides to LDL?
Triglycerides to LDL,
Yeah.
cholesterol, and then also, I would look at three minimum markers for glycemic control, for blood sugar control: glucose, which is just simply a measure of the amount of sugar in your blood
Yeah.
at that moment; hemoglobin A1C, which is the 3-month average of your blood sugar; and then your insulin, right? Because most people don't realize the relationship between insulin and health, right? The primary role of insulin is actually not to lower blood sugar, contrary to popular belief. The primary role of insulin is to block any other form of energy use in the body. So as insulin rises, the body cannot burn fat, cannot access the fatty acid pathway. It has to burn sugar. So if you eat high fat and high sugar and your glucose spikes and your insulin rises, now that insulin is going to prevent the metabolism of fat. And where is fat going to build up? It's going to build up in your bloodstream. And when it builds up in your bloodstream, how is it transported? It's transported around on cholesterol. So what's it going to do to your cholesterol? It's going to decrease the particulate size of your cholesterol and increase your cardiovascular risk. And why does it decrease the size of cholesterol? Because if you remember from high school geometry, as the size of a sphere gets smaller, its surface area to volume ratio goes up. In other words, if I had two basketballs sitting on a table and they were, let's say they represent 2 molecules of cholesterol, and I cover those basketballs with fat, which represents a triglyceride, and now I dump more fat onto the table. Well, now I have to take those 2 basketballs and make 4 softballs. If I add fat, I have to make them 8 baseballs. If I add fat, I need to make them 16 golf balls. If I add fat, I need to make them 32 BBs. I've never changed the amount of cholesterol. I only increase the amount of fat. Does that make sense?
Yeah, like the particle size is smaller.
So now the particle size has gotten smaller.
Yeah.
Now you're in a very dangerous situation. So how do you lower your triglyceride? You lower your blood sugar. You lower insulin.
So triglycerides is linked with blood sugar spikes.
No question. I mean,
Yeah.
people that eat the most sugar have the highest blood fat. No question. Why? Because sugar raises insulin. Insulin blocks fatty acid metabolism. Fat then shows up in the blood, right? So if you eat consistently high sugary meals, or you eat high glycemic foods that raise your glycemic profile, your sugars very quickly, then that elevated sugar elevates the insulin and blocks the fatty acid pathway. People that are insulin resistant start to gain weight because they're not able to mobilize and metabolize fatty acids. When you make their insulin stop looking like a heart monitor and start looking like rolling hills, you see the triglycerides come down and the weight eviscerate.